Hey Buckaroos, welcome back, Musicom Academy, and this is lesson number 14, and it's combined with the lessons 11, 12, and 13. We left off in 13 with making a music list for next week, a normal, typical, run-of-the-mill playlist. This time, we are going to do it differently. We are going to prepare for a major ratings period. Now, what I'm about to tell you, I don't know if anybody else has ever done this. I don't know if people think this way. I would assume that other people do, programmers, but I've never been to a convention like the NAB or a conference or read in a blog or, seen anybody, consultants. Nobody's ever mentioned this to me. It's something that I did. I started doing maybe halfway through my time of being a PD. At first I didn't, but then it's like, well, why wouldn't I do this? And what the concept is, in very simple form, is I would look ahead and go, gee, I'm going to be in a major ratings period, either spring or fall, in April 1st, let's just say. And that's kind of typically where they are. The spring would start April 1st, depending on your country. Anyway, April 1st. I'm looking at that, but at the time, which is what it is right now, I'm right at the beginning of February, so I'm 2 months out. Is there anything that I can do now that helps me when I get there on April 1st? And my conclusion was this, that if I could add music more aggressively for 6 weeks to 2 months leading up to the April 1st book, when it starts, if my music was already on the radio station and to my listeners in a pretty slow rotation, a very carefully planned rotation, then my audience would be really familiar with the songs that other radio stations are only now just starting to add. And on their radio station, their audience might go, whoa, what's that? Punch. What's that? Punch. And they'd go looking for a similar station and they would come to mine. And they might hear the same song, on my radio station, but my audience wouldn't be leaving. My audience, in other words, they may react the same on my station as they did on theirs because it's new to them, but my audience would never be reacting that way. They would be going, yeah, fine, I've heard that for 2 months now. So in other words, I would wean them onto the songs that the other stations were just starting to play. That was the theory. Is it right or wrong? I have no idea. Being totally honest with you, as so much in radio programming is just a crapshoot. It's taking your gut feel, thinking it through, and then trying it and going with it. Now, I did this for years and years and years. I had great ratings with all the radio stations that I programmed, so I just assumed that this worked. And I'm passing it on to you. You can do with it whatever you want. You can either embrace it or go, yeah, I don't know, that's kind of screwed up. I'm not going to take that gamble. All I can tell you is, for me, something while doing this worked. And I think that's one of the, not to get off on too much of a tangent here, one of the big things in programming is, if you really want to be good and have a magnificent, awesome, interesting radio station, you got to gamble with it. You got to do things that other people don't do. It's just that simple. If you do the tried and true, you're going to get killed because somebody like me is going to come in and I'm going to be gambling on different things, not the whole radio station continually, but I'm going to be gambling on things and you're going to be in my way. I'm going to mow you down. I'm just going to run right over you because you're going to be boring in comparison to my radio station. It's just that simple. So you have to gamble on things and take chances. Again, does this work? I don't know. It seemed incredibly logical to me. And I used to love the way the radio stations would sound when I would get into, April and the book would start. So that's where we are. Now, sorry, I'm bouncing around here. In the middle of this lesson, as we do a music list, first we're going to pick it up from the point where we started to build a new playlist from the last lesson. I'm going to pick it up right there. I'm not going to go through all the other, lead up. So I'm going to add the new songs in, and then I'm going to introduce two concepts to you that we have not talked about yet. One is dayparting, which you will almost have to do on virtually every single song that you add and that's in your entire music universe. It will have some sort of dayparting on it in some way. Now, the dayparting might be no dayparting. It's wide open to play 24/7, 7 days a week, but that is a dayparting. You're going to have to make that decision. How's that play? So that's one, dayparting. We'll go through that not only in concept, but I'll also go through that on the computer with you and literally do it with Music Master to show you how it's done. I'll do, I don't know, 2 or 3 of them, okay, just so you get the idea, and we'll talk it through. And the other one, which is easy to do, but it's definitely more complex. There's some math involved, and you really got to think what you're doing, and that is packeting songs. I'll explain what it is, really easy concept to understand, not necessarily so easy to actually think through, but also relatively easy to do on the computer. And we will do it literally on the computer so you can see how it's done. So that's where we're going this lesson. I hope you enjoy it. Let's move to the computer so I can start doing this stuff for you. Now, let's start with day parting. That's a pretty easy one. They're both actually fairly easy to do. The only thing you really need to think about a lot is what exactly are you trying to achieve, because it's very easy to do these things in reverse of what you think you're doing. Okay, so you really got to pay attention. Other than that, they're pretty simple to do, and the computer just handles stuff. So, day parting. What exactly is day parting? Well, day parting is something that you're going to have to code onto every single song. Sometimes, actually for the majority of your library, the coding of day parting is actually no coding at all, but you're still going to have to do it. So you're going to have to choose a song and say, well, I'm not going to day part this at all, and that actually is the coding of no day parting. So what literally is day parting? It's going through your library, every song that you're playing in your music universe, and deciding and telling the computer at that time what hours of the day and night that song is allowed to play in. And this rule will override all other rules. So that's essentially it. You're telling the computer what hours the song can and cannot be played in on your radio station. Now, why would you do that? Well, let's just go through some easy examples, and this is what it would look like. Let's say you have a Saturday night oldies show, and it's 7 to midnight on a Saturday night, and you're doing it on an AC radio station, or any format, really. Now, you don't really want to set up and build specific categories for just this 5-hour Saturday night show, because you're using up a lot of the categories and you don't want to do that. In addition, since this is a gold show, you're going to have a lot of gold that you're going to be playing in the regular hours too, because you want to play some really great gold in this Saturday night show, and you're also going to play probably a lot of the same really great gold during the regular station hours. So you don't want to be separating them. But there's also going to be songs that you don't want played during the regular hours, but you do want them played in this 7 to midnight show. Perhaps it's something that's super disco or whatever, and you really don't want it being played in regular hours. So what you would do is you would take those songs that you don't want played in regular hours, you would code them so they only play 7 to midnight on Saturday night, and you would put them into a regular appropriate gold category. Let's say you had a category of 60s and 70s gold, and you had a song from 1972 or 1965, so the years match. You would put it into that category, but since you don't want it played anywhere else other than 7 to midnight on Saturday night, you would day part it so that it only plays Saturday night, 7 to midnight. That's pretty much it. Now let's go through some other easy examples. This is one that's really pretty common, no morning drive. A lot of stations, when playing new songs, that they don't want to have them broken in on the morning show for maybe a month or 2 or 3 weeks. So the songs get blocked from mornings till the PD feels comfortable playing them on the morning show. Or sometimes a song is just deemed too hard for mornings, but it's okay everywhere else, so you would code it like this. Here's another one that's pretty common, no morning or afternoon drive. And this usually comes up with slow songs or something like a Josh Groban song that's, you go, yeah, this is good for midday. But I don't want it in the drives, and I'm okay to play it at nights in the all-night show. So you'd code it like this. This one is almost the opposite of no drive times. It's no daytime until 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This usually comes up with songs that are fairly hard or rockier than a usual song. You want to play it, but you don't want it played before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe you think the audience is getting a little younger at 4, or you just want the station, you think, yeah, I can pick up some little bit more tempo. I can rock a little harder after 4. So you start playing it at around 4 or 3 o'clock, and it's okay all the way around to the morning show of the next morning. If you have a love songs type show, weekdays, 7 to midnight, similar thinking to the Saturday Night Oldies show, the only thing sometimes you have to be careful about this is, you have to make sure that you're allowing these songs to play Monday through Friday. But if you don't have a pillow talk type show on Saturday or Sunday, that you have to block Saturday and Sunday. So you got to keep track of where these things are. And that's actually the hardest part of this. Doing it is easy. Thinking about it, you have to add more thought to it. Let's do one more. All nights only. Now, why would you just play a song only on all nights? Well, you might want to loosen your playlist considerably from midnight to 6 a.m. because you're thinking about a different type of listener, a different type of audience during this period. It might be a grocery store worker in a Publix or a Kroger or a Metro who's stocking shelves all night long, where the store is closed, the station is playing all night, every night on the speakers. Nobody's going to get up and go back and change the station because it's going to be hard to get at probably the radio. You have to get on the system. And you don't want to drive these people crazy. So you believe that repetition should be slowed and a little bit more variety added into your radio station so those captive workers don't get bored with your station. Same thing maybe for, hospital workers, or really any workplace at all that's open all night long during all nights. Your station may be their only companion. So songs in regular categories will get played on the all-night show that will be blocked out of all other hours. Essentially, you're making your universe, your playlist, wider. Let's move to Music Master, and I'll take you through this. It's going to look almost identical because it pretty much looks like a spreadsheet, just like what I've been doing, but we'll actually do a couple for real. Just like the spreadsheet, it's pretty simple. You go for a new restriction. Okay, now you got a blank sheet, and then you just start putting X's where you do not want a song to play. So if we were going to say do the 7 to midnight thing, Monday through Friday, the love songs type show, you'd start to block out all the hours other than 7 to midnight, Monday through Friday. So let's do Monday. Now, one of the easy things, you could just keep doing them one by one if you want, but you can also just touch the day, copy it, Control C, and then touch Tuesday, and paste, and so on. Again, if you didn't have your love songs type show on Saturday and Sunday nights, you'd want to make sure that you block those specific songs from Saturday and Sunday nights, like we talked about. And then you would simply save it. You put a title of it, so call it Love Songs Only, and save it. And one of the things along the top here, it'll tell you what each one of these icons means, so you can figure out what you're doing. Let's move on to packeting, and the big question I guess would be, what do you do with that? Like, what's that for? Well, it's for slowing down the rotations or altering the rotations inside a category that would be way harder to do if you were trying to do it with different categories. In other words, you can put rules inside of rules inside of rules inside of rules. Packeting is where you can group songs together inside a category, but you have the computer think that those multiple songs that are all packeted together are really just one song. It sort of sees it as one song in the normal rotations, but then when it hits that packet, it has to go inside the packet and then start dealing with what's inside. Let's make believe we have 2 Taylor Swift songs inside the packet. One is going to be the normal love story song, the typical one recorded years ago. The second is their new version. And by the way, this could easily be 2 totally different artists and songs. It doesn't have to be in any way related. But for now, we'll call these Love Story Old, and we'll call them Love Story New. This is what's going to happen. It's going to hit Blinding Lights, next hour Adore You, next hour Before You Go, next hour Post Malone, and then next hour it's going to be Love Story and the new version. Let's start over again. Blinding Lights, Adore You, Before You Go, Circles, Love Story, old version. Back again. Blinding Lights, Harry Styles, Capaldi, Post Malone, new version of Love Story, and so on and so forth. That's what it'll keep doing with 2 songs inside a packet. So as you see, if the normal rotation were 5 hours, then 2 songs inside a packet would make those rotations 10 hours. 5 hours for the first one, 5 hours for the second one. By the time the first one came back up around again, 10 hours would have passed. If there were 3 songs, it'd be 15 hours. 4 songs, 20 hours. So that's basically the way it works. And that's, again, easy to do, but that's where the math sometimes becomes a little tough, because when you get into bigger categories, if you want to pack it, you really got to start thinking about the math and trying to do some what's actually going to happen here. Here's some examples of packeting, some things that you might want to do. You can put an acoustic or live version, same song, different version. You might also want to pack it like one-hit wonders or kind of songs that are oddities, or you may want to find yourself in a situation where you need to play weaker songs than you want to because of a lack of choices. This actually was pretty common in the early days of being forced to play CanCon in Canada before the music industry was fully up to speed and matured like it is now. Now it's not a problem, but in the early days there weren't a lot of good songs. There was some, but not enough of them to actually make the percentage that you needed to make for the government. So you needed to dig in and play deeper than you actually would ever want to, so you wouldn't actually burn out the strong, great songs. You know, there's only so many Guess Who songs and Gordon Lightfoot songs and Bryan Adams songs. There was only so many of them in the early days. And you for sure didn't want to burn those artists out, because at least you had strong songs there. But if you burn them out and fry them where people are sick of hearing them, then all of a sudden you had nothing. You would be left with nothing great to play at all. If you packeted them together, you could play those other weaker songs, but you could control them and have them slower than a normal category, and everything would be fine. By the way, you don't need to do this for packeting with just music. You can also packet non-music elements together, like jingles or liners or sweepers. Maybe you have 5 different versions of something saying, we're the variety station. You could put them all into one packet, and when they come up to play that jingle, it's going to keep rotating through those jingles on its own. And again, not to go too deep, so I'm just going to skim over this. There's 3 types of packets on Music Master. There's a standard one, a diggable one, and a weighted one. The weighted one being the coolest. Anyway, the standard one it would just take things in order. So if you had 3 songs, first time through, it's going to take the first one. Second times through, it's going to take the second one. Third times through, it'll take the third one. And then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It'll just keep doing that. A diggable one is when you're making allowances that perhaps you have something inside that packet that the computer system is going to have trouble playing. And it's going to stop and flag the system that, hey, I can't schedule anything. You're giving me too many rules. You're going to have to do this by hand. I'll just keep going, but I'm going to leave the slot blank. So in that instance, you would make it diggable, and you'd give it a dig level of maybe 1 or 2 or whatever you want to set it at. So if you had 3 songs, it might play the first one. It comes around to the second one, maybe because of dayparting. Say it's dayparted out of the morning show, but it's going to try to play a song in the morning show, and it hits the packet where the second song is a no-play morning type song. It'll skip it and go on to the next one. That's a diggable one. It'll dig deeper and keep going. The last one, the weighted one, is really cool, but again, you got to really think this through. But the weighted one would be if you say you put 2 songs into the packet. I'll make this really easy. And let's say you had a live version of Taylor Swift's Love Story, and then you had the real version. Well, if you wanted to set it and weight it, you could say, I want the real version to go 3-to-1 on the live version. So 3 times it will play the real one, and then that 4th time it'll play the live one. And then go back to 3, 1, 3, 1 inside the packet. Let's do this for real now. We'll move over to the computer, Music Master, and we'll actually do it. I'll show you kind of how easy it is to physically do it, as opposed to actually thinking about it. So I got a typical A category here that we've been talking about. The only difference is that I've added another Harry Styles song in. Now, as you remember, we had 5 A's. Now there's 6. There's 2 Harry Styles ones. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 2 Harry Styles together. I'm going to packet them both together. Watermelon Sugar is the relatively newer version of a Harry Styles song, his newer hits, so to speak, even though it's been out a while. And Adore You has been out for ages, so what we're going to do is slow Adore You down from a 5-hour rotation to a 10-hour rotation. And Watermelon Sugar is also going to have a 10-hour rotation, which oddly enough is actually going to slow that one down, because right now we would have it in the B's on a 7-hour rotation. But just to put these 2 together and to show you, and they'll both have 10-hour rotations, because there's, at the end of this, there'll be 5 slots, even though there's 6 songs, 5 slots in the A's, 1 being played per hour. So let's just do this, okay? So here's Harry Styles. You do a right click on anywhere on the song, and it's going to bring up this, which we go to packeting, and we can either create a new packet or add it to a packet. We're going to create a new packet at the moment. So let's create a packet. It's going to be in the A's, and we're going to name it. So let's just name it styles. You can certainly be a lot more descriptive than that, and you're going to need to be probably if you have a lot of packets. Otherwise, you'll be like, I don't remember what's in here. Anyway, for this, it's styles. Okay, I'll hit OK. Now, you can't really tell that there's anything going on here. Unfortunately, you kind of wish it would be great to have like a P here or something like, all right, this is part of a packet, but there's not. Anyway, let's go to the other Harry Styles one. We'll touch on it. Again, you can touch anywhere on here. Here, I'll show you. I'll touch over here. Right click, packet again, but now we're not going to create a new one because we've already made the start of one. So let's add to a packet. Here we go. And we'll finish this off. So I'm going to touch the styles one because I want this song to be added into the styles packet, and we'll hit OK. Again, still can't tell it's there, but if we go to the editor, again, right click, packeting, and let's look at the packet editor. And it'll show you over here, it'll show you on this side what kind of packets that you have. So, here's a packet here in the K category, and this is what's in it. The packet is called AC/DC Weaker, and there's 2 weaker songs in here. Here's Obscure 70s that we were looking at, and there's 4 songs in this one. And here's the styles one that we just made in the A category, and there's the 2 songs. So we're good. Let's go back to the packet editor for one more thing I'll just point out just to show you where it is. So let's go to the Obscure 70s one. Remember it had 4 songs? Well, this is a diggable one. Here, let me go to the styles. Styles is a standard one, okay? It's just taking them in order. First Watermelon, then Adore You. Watermelon, Adore You. Watermelon, Adore You. That's what it's going to do. When I touch the Obscure 70s and look inside that one, we have a diggable one, and the dig level has been set at 1. So if it can't play for whatever reason Got Love for Sale, it'll now move to the next song, Happiest Days of Our Lives by Pink Floyd. If you wanted to change that, you can just make this a 2, or a 3, or a 4, or whatever you want to make it. The last one is weighted, and it will look like this, and you put a weight on it. And there we go, and that's packeting. One last thing before we get into doing next week's playlist. I don't want to leave this super simplistic, but I also don't want to make it really hard for you either, and I've kind of debated whether to do this or not. But one of the other aspects of doing packeting is, and we've mainly talked about what happens inside a packet, when you add packets into a category, you also change the rotations of the other songs that are not in packets. So let me give you a really quick example. Let's just say it's a B category and there's 7 songs inside of it, and the songs are called A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, just to keep it simple. There's 7 song slots, they're 1 per hour, that's how they're played, and they take 7 hours to rotate. Okay, nothing's been done. Now let's move over to the right. Same 7 slots, A, B, C, D, right up to G, but then we've added one more song in, so now there's 7 slots, 8 songs, still playing 1 per hour, and the last song is the H song, G and H, is in the packet. You put that in the packet, and the other songs still rotate every 7 hours, as if we've done nothing, but the packet is now double that because there's 2 songs in it, and it's rotating every 14 hours. Let's do it again a different way. This time we will not add another song into the category to packet. We're going to take the category that we're in and packet some songs in it, but not add any songs. So all of a sudden, we still have 7 songs, but now we only have 6 slots because we've taken 2 and packeted them together. What happens now is the songs that are not in packets, they're on a 6-hour rotation. They're not on a 7-hour rotation. Instead of a 14-hour rotation for the 2 songs in the packet, it's now a 12-hour rotation because there's only 6 slots. So when we combine 2, we cut down the amount of slots. The computer thinks there's less songs, even though there actually are the same amount of songs. It's just that they're combined now. Let's do it one more time so you really get the idea, and I'm going to make 2 packets in the same category. Okay? Same exact thing, still 7 songs, but now we're down to 5 slots. Still playing 1 per hour. So all of a sudden, for the regular songs that are not inside of a packet, songs A, B, and E, they're on a 5-hour rotation. And for the 2 songs in the packet, they're now on a 10-hour rotation because there's 2 packets and only 5 slots now. It doesn't look like a whole lot's happening when you have a small category like this, but what will happen if you have a larger category, say you had a category with 100 songs in it, and they were playing once per hour, but you made 5 packets inside that of 5 songs each. You would all of a sudden cut those 100 slots in the 100-hour rotation down to 80 slots in an 80-hour rotation, which could change things dramatically. You can actually sort of make a formula for this, and it would sort of go along this lines. Before packeting a category, what you'd have to do is go to the starting point of your category and take a look at it. You want to count the total number of songs in the category. Let's say there's 100. You then want to count the number of packets that's in the category. It might be 0, it might be 5, like in this instance. And then you'd want to add up the total number of songs that are inside all of the packets. So in this instance, I just made believe that there's 5 packets and there's 5 songs each in them. So 5 times 5 is 25. You would then subtract the number of packets in the category from the total number of songs that are inside the packets. It's going to give you 20. That's how many slots you are now cutting out of this category. 20 is the number of slots you're losing. And at the end of it, songs outside the packets are now rotating every 80 hours instead of the original 100. Let's move on to doing a new playlist. This is going to be a pretty long lesson here, although I did want to tell you about packeting and dayparting, which is great that we've gone through that. And because of that, I want to use packeting when we do the new list here. I just want to point something out. On last week's list that we did, a normal list without being super aggressive with it. Sometimes when you're a new PD or when you're starting out, somebody will tell you, well, I have a 5-hour rotation, or I have a 7-hour rotation, or these rotate 12 hours, but you don't really know the impact of what that actually is. So let me put that into some different terms for you. If you look at this, last week's playlist, we have 5 A's, 7 B's, and we have 6 C's. The C's are running every other hour. The A's and B's are running every hour. So 5 songs, they're rotating every 5 hours, and 7 hours for the B's. And 2 times 6 is 12, so they're rotating 12 hours for the C's. So that's the hourly rotation. But here's the reality of it all. The A's are coming up 5 times a day. That's what you really got to know. How many times is this song going to play? 5 times a day. The B's are playing roughly 3.5 times a day. So you can just sort of think, well, how many day parts, how many shows is this song going to be playing on? How familiar is it going to be? And lastly, the C's will be playing 2 times a day, but that's a day and night also. That's 24 hours. So in reality, the C's are probably going to be playing 1 time in the 6 to midnight slot during the day as we know it, because a lot of times you ignore the all-night show. Now let's look over on the other side. This is the new list, a little bit more aggressive list that I would do. I packeted Harry Styles songs, Watermelon Sugar and Adore You. And because I packeted them, they're now on a 10-hour rotation. 10 into 24, now those songs only play roughly 2.5 times a day. Like I've really slowed them down by packeting them. Now, why would I do that? Well, partially to show you packeting on this lesson. That's one reason. But the other is I was looking at these songs because I was thinking about doing the same thing with The Weeknd and Save Your Tears and Blinding Lights. But I opted not to do The Weeknd for the reason I'm about to tell you. But first, let me tell you why I did Harry Styles. Harry Styles' Watermelon Sugar and Adore You came out in November and December of 2019. Not 2020, 2019. They've been out a long time. Let me add in here just things that you just get to know after a while in radio. If you were doing call out or current research where you're talking to people on new songs that are out now and you're asking them, how do you like it? Are you familiar? Are you sick of it? That type of stuff. It usually takes about 2 months for the song sort of to become familiar. The scores of familiarity start to cross into a pretty nice range, somewhere around 8 weeks, 7 weeks, somewhere in that range. So it takes 2 months for a song to even get sort of familiar. So bear that in mind. The other part of it is, typically if a song is going to become a hit song, and it's not unbelievably astounding, but it's a normally good hit song, not something remarkable. from the point it's released till the point it becomes a hit and sort of gets up at the top of the charts, that's usually about an 8-month thing, somewhere around there. And then, depending on how strong it is, it'll stay for another 2, 3, maybe even 4 months up in the strong parts of the charts. So it might run for a year, like the Harry Styles and Adore You, because it came out in December of 2019. We're in the beginning of February of 2021. That's had a 12, 13, 14, that's a 14-month run. Think of that for a second. Watermelon Sugar is sort of in the same boat time-wise. It's, a little bit shorter, but basically it's the same thing. But AC has embraced that song slower, so therefore everything has sort of been slowed down, and it's still on the way up the AC charts. I suspect Adore You to start dropping fairly soon, particularly with Watermelon Sugar coming up. Usually you kind of don't want two of the same artists, on a chart. You want to start moving one out. So with all of that in mind, I think it's safe to take Watermelon Sugar and Adore You and start slowing them down, which allows me to keep them longer on the current lists. But for the weekend, Save Your Tears is coming fast, and it's only been out since around end of August, September. So if you start counting from September, the beginning of September, you have September, October, November, December, January, and the beginning of February. That's only 6 months. It's only really 5.5 months. It's really going to be hitting stride about 2 months from now. When is that going to be? Exactly when the big rating book starts in April. It's going to be full stride at that point. So I'm bearing that in mind too. So I don't want to slow it down now, because that 2-month familiarity and that type of thing I was talking about for the call out type research, I don't want to slow that down so much that it takes that 2-month and stretches it out to 3 months. I want it to have a normal rotation for a newer song. Probably 2 weeks from now, maybe 3, maybe next week, Adore You, I might just drop that down to the B's and leave Watermelon Sugar alone in the A's with no packeting. That's the logic, so you can follow kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing and what's going on. B's are pretty much the same. To look down to the C's now, I added in Lonely, and I added in Ariana Grande and Positions. Story of Love was there too. Still at 6 songs in the C's. I actually thought about Dayparting Justin Bieber and Lonely out of the morning show, mainly because of the tempo, but also to give you a Dayparting on that lesson. But I think you probably understand Dayparting enough that I don't actually have to do one. Anyway, that's the list. A little bit more aggressive list, and the thinking of what I would be doing preparing for an upcoming major ratings period 2 months down the road. Dayparting of music and doing packeting, really important things to have in your programming arsenal of knowing what to do, when to do it, how they work, and literally how to do them on a computer. Really important stuff. And super glad to be able to show that to you and give you context of why you would be using those things. And also, it's up to you if you want to take that whole concept or idea that I had of pre-planning and setting up for going into a major ratings period, 6 weeks to 2 months out, and being more aggressive with your music. Again, I don't know of anybody else that did that. Anyway, it's up to you whether you want to try it or not, or do it for a few, or just embrace it and go with it. That's the tough part about programming. One of the things about when you're programming a radio station, which a lot of people don't understand, especially managers and other people, they sort of think it's easy. When you're programming, what ends up happening is it's just like you standing on the edge of a cliff and then you jump off. And you have no idea whether your parachute is going to open or your parasail is going to fly or whatever. You have no idea until 3 months down the road when the ratings come out, and then you can go, oh wow, I made the right decisions 3 months ago. I mean, it's kind of scary in a way, for a lot of people, and it should be, but most people don't sort of understand. If you don't do it, they don't understand that pressure of actually having to guess and not knowing if you're right for a pretty long period of time. The only thing you have to go by is your ear and common sense and logic, and in some instances like this, gambling and taking the shot that, I think this will work. And again, I assumed it did. I still believe it. That's why I'm telling it to you. But do I know 100% that this was the reason that I had good ratings? No, I don't. I really don't. And the only time I found in programming, and then I'll end this lesson right here, but this is a truism. The only time you really know when you're programming if something you're doing is right or wrong. The only time is when something goes bad. That's when you learn from the crap. You don't learn from the good stuff, because you never know what's actually good. You can just keep repeating it, what you think is good, and if you keep having good ratings, you just sort of assume that, I guess this stuff probably is what's working. But you'll know instantly when you do something that screws the radio station up, because you'll see your ratings come down. So, there's a word of wisdom there. Anyway, if you like the channel, subscribe and all that other stuff. Okay, there's no sense going into it. I'm sure you know the drill. And we'll see you on the next lesson. See ya!